Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to RWBY, Volume 7. I don't know why my mind blanked there. Volume 7, Chapter 4. So yeah, I am recording this day before. I am recording this on Black Friday. And the reason I'm bringing that up, you guys know I pre-record these, but the reason I'm bringing it up specifically on the day is kind of as well an update to my feet. As you know, I've had some foot issues with pains and injuries. I sprained my foot, and then my other foot got hurt because of just the way I had to walk on it and shit. I'm almost completely healed. Like yesterday at Thanksgiving, again, as of when I'm recording this, on Thanksgiving, I was mostly good. I still had some pains. I still was walking a little funny because I had to. This morning, it's been a lot better even from that. So we're gonna, starting probably this next week, we're going to be getting back into recording things out there. Um, but we're finishing up this week with stuff here. Um, so yeah, back to the point though, RWBY. So last we left off, we got to see the teamwork and ability of the Ace Ops. And yeah, they're great. They have some pretty cool semblances, some pretty cool weapons, and just a lot of skill and great teamwork that really just shows how, well, ace they are, how much of a true uh, pro huntsman team they are. So it's good to see that. We got a little bit of cuteness with Blake and Yang. Um, got the new outfits, got the new hairdos for certain characters, yada yada yada. One of the bigger things we did get though, which was it's bigger in terms of its context, but it was kind of like, I wouldn't say swept under the rug, more along the lines of it was pushed to the back for now. It will be coming back, that's very obvious, but it is a bigger thing overall, very clearly, and that is, why did RWBY choose to lie to Ironwood and all? And the fact that it was brought up in the episode that it was kind of hypocritical, considering all the grief they gave Ozpin. Blake and Blake and Weiss rather seem to be for the idea, saying that they can't fully trust Ironwood yet. They have to wait and see, give it time. And I understand that, but I'm still siding with Yang here. I still think, well, I guess Yang and Oscar, I guess, as well. I think it's wrong and hypocritical to do this. I think that Ironwood is one of the few people who can be undoubtedly trusted. Yeah, like I've said before, Ironwood has his issues. That's very clear, and it's very clear that he doesn't always do necessarily the best thing. That he is very over-militarized in his ideals and his, just everything he does. But let's be honest, he's a good guy, and he does truly want to protect the citizens of Remnant. He does want to save this world. He's fully trustworthy in that. He's not a bad guy. He has no negative intent. And he's not going to, like, turn on anyone. I mean, you could say, like, oh, but Ozpin and Crow and them never thought Lionheart would. And it's like, yeah, but look at who Lionheart is. Or was as a character. Like, Lionheart, we were told, was a pretty valiant huntsman in the past. But based on personality and character tics and stuff, it's like it's super obvious he was going to betray them from the start. With someone like Ironwood, he's been working hard this entire time for the good side. And even when he's done some negative stuff in the past, it's always been for the greater good in his eyes. I don't see Ironwood being anywhere near that same kind of thing as Lionheart. I don't see him betraying them in any way. I don't see any kind of negativity coming from him in terms of just his intent to save Remnant. He truly wants to save the people, and this is the best way he thinks to do so. The problem is, by hiding this information, like I said, RWBY is being super hypocritical. But even on top of that, hiding that kind of information is only going to hurt the efforts against Salem. Because that information is crucial to the fight against her. It is crucial. It is just completely necessary to know. So I completely think it's wrong to do so. Now, Yang, and I guess Oscar as well, even though it didn't go as into Oscar as it did, in terms of, like, how they left off in that, Yang kind of just, like, gave into the will of the group leader. RWBY is the group leader. They've agreed to follow her lead. Yang, even though she's RWBY's older sister, agreed to follow her. And so she's going to be like, okay, I will follow you in this. But I don't think she necessarily still agreed with it. I think it's like one of those situations where she's willing to follow them. She's willing to listen to RWBY's leadership here. But that doesn't necessarily mean she agrees with the decision. That's how I kind of felt about Yang's response after Blake and Weiss gave their thoughts and everything. Because that's how this is. RWBY is the leader of their conjoined group. Team RWBY, Team Junior, Crow, Maria. RWBY's the leader. So it's like they're going to follow her. They're going to listen to her, even if they don't necessarily agree with every decision she makes. So yeah. Last episode was not really super heavy with the main plot stuff most of the episode. It was basically, well, as the song that played when Team RWBY was jumping out of the plane basically stated, a return to form. Like the song, I don't remember exactly how the lyrics go, but it was like, it was basically talking about, like, we're back, we're here again, we're doing this again. It's been a long, long time. And they've been together for a while, but what this means is that they're finally working, like, as a huntsman team, as a huntress team again. When they were jumping out of the plane alone was very reminiscent of the landing strategy scene in early Volume 1. And getting to see them in action with the Aesops taking on the Sentinels and the Geist and all was very just reminiscent of old day RWBY action. Like, one of the greatest fights, without doubt, in this series is when teams RWBY and Juniper, they were Juniper at the time, because Pyrrha was still alive, when in Volume 1, after getting the chess pieces and all, they took on the giant Nevermore and the, I cannot remember what the Scorpion is called right now. You know what I'm talking about, that big battle at the beginning of Volume 1, where they're all fighting together, all taking on both the Scorpion and the Nevermore. And it's like this massive, just really epic fight with some great choreography, great music, great teamwork from our characters. It's, like I said, in my opinion, still one of the best fights in this entire series, and I stand by that. And I'm reminded of that when I see a fight like what happened last time. Last week's episode, the fight may not have been as big or epic or impactful, but it brought us back to that time in this series where we could just focus on them being huntresses and fighting Grimm and just doing what they do. And don't get me wrong, I love all the character development, I love all the depth we've given them, I love all the story that we've given. I think it was not only the smart decision, but the necessary decision to make with this series going forward, that we needed to move into that stuff. And we're definitely not done with that stuff. We're definitely not done with the heavy story stuff. We're definitely not done with the lore, with the heavy drama and character development stuff. No, not by any means. I mean, the Schnee family is shown in the opening, so we're going to get some of that this volume with Weiss for sure. But it's good to revisit that old action, you know? It just feels good to go back to the basics sometimes. And I think they handled it well. I think, again, like the song that played, again, when Team RWBY was jumping out of the plane and doing their landing strategies and everything, was very nostalgic in its tone. It was very, like, very much remembering the good times and coming back to that for the first time in, for these characters, basically years. I mean, people pointed out, like, when the trailer first dropped and it showed that them falling and coming from the plane and everything, people pointed out Yang very quickly and how she was smiling and laughing. After everything that had happened to her, she was smiling and laughing again. Like, truly happy. And it was a big deal, and that's why that scene, especially on multiple rewatches for me, really hit me hard. Honestly, on multiple rewatches, I actually had broken down and cried a couple times, especially listening to the lyrics of the song. Because it's like, not only just from the nostalgia of that kind of action stuff that was to come, but because of what it meant for these characters. They went through a massive dark patch in what I refer to as part 2 of the series. I basically put the series into 3 parts currently. Part 1 was volumes 1 through 3. Part 2 was volumes 4 through 6. And now we're in part 3 with 7 onward. And part 2, 4 through 6, for the volumes, was the dark time. It's like all of our characters had these heavy, dark emotions and troubles they had to get through. Weiss with her family ties. Blake with her, well, with her just self-doubt and fears. RWBY with coming to terms with who she is as a leader. And of course, Yang with her depression and PTSD. And these characters went through all of that horrible shit. And now, as we have entered part 3, they've come back, and we're back into a new stage of this series. And they're ready to kick ass and be Team RWBY again. And I think that's important, and I think that's great. And hell, you could even do some Team Junior stuff with that, like compare like with Team Junior and all, with Jean getting over his loss of Pyrrha in part 2, and now like kind of having rediscovered who he is and become a true huntsman. Ren and Nora having to reconcile with their past and being stronger because of it. It's like, yeah, these great moments. And that's why I think that, like, volumes 4 and 5, as much as some people like to hate on them, were necessary for the character development, for the continuation of this show. this show could not exist in the way it is now. It could not continue going on. It could not be as good as it is without that kind of character development, without that kind of depth added in. That was necessary. It couldn't have gone on the same as it did in the first part. It could not have survived in that way. It would have gotten too stale too quickly. They had to change things up, and the way they did it was phenomenal. Especially after the events of Volume 3, they had to go into that darker, more character, more story-focused route. But yeah, I've talked quite a bit about all of this. I have no idea what's happening in this episode, but except I know one thing. I know apparently Yang and Blake take a selfie together, because that's blown up everywhere. I don't know the context behind it. I don't know why they do it or when they do it. I mean, I can imagine why, because, Bumblebee. Which, by the way, real quick, I noticed even the people who were doubting Bumblebee at the end of Volume 6, like, when they beat Adam and everything, it's like, I'm like, me and some others are like saying, oh, this like confirms Bumblebee. There's no other way you can read it. And there, so many others were saying like, no, 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 they're just friends. That's just friendship stuff. And now even those people aren't denying anymore. Now instead they're just changing their tune to like, oh, Rooster Teeth's just pandering. And it's like, dudes, okay, you don't like Bumblebee. That's fine, but just stop bitching about it. It's canon. Deal with it. um, but anyway, yeah, it's just that's the one thing I know about this episode because again, it's been everywhere. I could not escape it. So I do know that they take a selfie. That's all I know. I don't know the context. I don't know like when or why or whatnot. I don't even know if it has anything to do with the actual plot of the episode in any way. I know nothing. Um, so yeah, we'll see. We'll see where that goes, and where everything else goes, and yada yada yada. So that being said, I've talked too much. So let's get this going. When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then it fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts, and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. Okay, so there's a few things to talk about here, but before anything, I want to get to specifically one scene that I think was not only the best scene of the episode, but just was really handled exceptionally well in terms of how it was presented and made and everything. And that is, I'm not going to talk about all of it right at this moment, but Weiss standing up to her father. So, this is something we knew was coming. It's not a big surprise. We knew Weiss would stand up to him. We knew that she's gained the confidence she needed to do so. But, just watch the scene again. Look at the way it's shot. Look at how Weiss is shot. She has this kind of smarmy look almost on her face at times. She looks very just done with his shit. The way she stands, the way she carries herself, not just the body language she uses, like the hand on the hip and everything, and the facial expressions and all, but also just the way she again stands. She stands very firm, very tall, her chest kind of pushed out. She's very much trying to tell her father with the way she's, standing there, with the way she's presenting herself to him, that she's done being the little girl he could manipulate and control. By standing like that, by positioning herself like that to him, she is, well, she's not only just standing up for her rights, obviously, she's presenting herself in a very powerful way. She's presenting herself as being in control of this situation. And you notice when Jacques brings up her mom and everything, you notice how she slumps a little, you notice her expression change, her body language change. Like, this is super expertly done. The crew really put forth effort into making that just super expertly handled in all of the body language and everything. Like, even if you just watch the scene without hearing what they were saying, even if you just looked at a single screenshot, you would know exactly what was going on. Because that body language just speaks volumes. It's so impressive. And I wanted to bring this up first, not just because, you know, huge Weiss fangirl, favorite character and everything, big moment for her development. Yeah, that's all great, and it's all true, and I love that for that reason. But I also really appreciate and love when that kind of detail, that kind of attention to detail is given to moments like that. Moments that are that big of a deal for character development and stuff. When that kind of attention to detail, that kind of in otherwise what was not even a big necessarily moment of the episode, an important part of the episode's overall narrative. Like, they put so much attention to detail, so much focus on making that seem like such a big scene. And it was a big scene in terms of, again, Weiss's character development and everything, but still. It was just, I just really loved it. So yeah, this episode starts basically from where the last episode left off with our team. So last episode left off, they had just defeated the Geist. They're celebrating in the cave, well, the mines, and then it kind of cuts to Tyrion killing that guy. So here we start with them coming out of the mines, and Ironwood is there to meet them. But before Ironwood can even say anything to them, Jacques arrives, and Weiss has her confrontation with him. Just big, great, powerful moment for her. Makes me love Weiss even more. But Jacques is pissed. Not just at the idea that Ironwood has commissioned his missing daughter against him. It's not that so much. He's pissed that he can no longer control and manipulate her. Like like I mentioned, he tries to do so by bringing up Weiss's mother and how Weiss running away affected her. You could just the way he says it is so slimy. The way he's just purposefully trying to manipulate her to have her under his thumb. He's a sick piece of shit. That's all he wants. He just wants control. He wants to be able to manipulate people, especially his own family. And while it may have worked for Whitley, it did not work for Winter or Weiss. They were able to escape that. So Jacques gets pissed at pretty much everything and storms away. He leaves. And Winter comes and Penny right around that time. And we find out that Winter was basically just avoiding him. I don't blame her. But yeah, so they head to the Amity Coliseum, and at that point, with Winter and Penny there as well, Ironwood officially licenses Teams RWBY and Junior. they become fully licensed pro huntsmen and huntresses. And I know the scene was shot in a way that was kind of like, oh, this is like not a big deal. And hell, even the characters, their reactions and all at first, it's like, this is not really that big a deal anymore. There's more important things to worry about. But I was super ecstatic because it's like, this is important for their mission. Because now they're pro. They're officially licensed pro huntsmen and huntresses. They don't have the limits they did anymore. It's not just about these missions they can go on. They have so fewer limits in what they can do just out there. And they're able to use that. So it's like, that's going to help in their battles here. We see them celebrate. There's some cute moments. The selfie, Yang and Blake's selfie was cute. There's some cute stuff, banter and stuff with the characters just hanging around. And the Aesops come in, start deciding to basically work missions with everyone. It looks like Marrow and Jean are going to go do like this kind of babysitting gig, while Elm is going to take two of them on a search and destroy mission. So I really want to see that one, because I really want to see more of Elm, for one. I just really love what we've seen of her character so far. Because I'll be completely honest here. I have a thing for buff girls. I've pretty much always had a thing for buff girls. I mean, some of my favorite characters from a lot of different shows and games and stuff tend to be buff girls. I mean, Korra from The Legend of Korra. Yang is my second favorite character in RWBY, as a big example. And, wow, so many others. I like Brigitte Lindholm from Overwatch, even though I don't really play. I really love the the animations and various things. And I love Brigitte and her character and everything from what I've seen in those. And yeah, it's just, I tend to just really like those kinds of characters. So it's like, yeah, and plus Elm's personality is very wild and rambunctious, a little bit like Nora's, which is, I love that they played around with the idea, like, just of already shipping those two. Like, seriously, Nora's like, okay, can we just form a team and you can call us Thunder Thighs? One, I love, that was a joke about how characters are just shipped together for um, just kind of shallow reasons, I guess you could say, because, Nora and her are both, well, I guess I've always seen Nora as kind of buff. Not like Yang buff, but I've always kind of seen Nora as kind of buff. And not to mention, they're both very strong, like wild characters. They're very similar. Um, so I like how they kind of made that joke about that, but also they took it further with this ship name idea, Thunder Thighs. Like, that would definitely be their ship name. Like, not even a question. The Crewbie was just having fun with that. That was a riff on the fandom, a fun riff, not like, oh, they're making fun of us. No, they're having fun with us. They're joking about it. And the Crewbie's always been cool about that stuff, about fanships and stuff. So it's like, it's nothing really new, but it's a pleasant, fun little moment, anyways. Um, but yeah, so it's like they're getting ready to head out on missions and everything, and just celebrating, and we get this really nice moment, this really nice down moment with Crow and RWBY. That was, again, one of the best parts of the episode for sure. Because, one, it was just a really nice moment of these two getting to talk, but also bringing up, again, RWBY's decision to not tell Ironwood everything. My only issue with it is they still try to demonize Ozpin as if he did something wrong. And it's like, oh, Ozpin hid his secrets from everyone. It's like, you're still on about that? What, he didn't do anything wrong. It wasn't bad of him to hide that kind of a secret. That was a valid secret to hide, and honestly, I do not blame him in the slightest for it. There's no valid reason to blame him for anything. And then it's like, and then their excuse is basically like, oh, but you're sharing it with people. You're not hiding the secrets from everyone. You're sharing it with people, but only when you feel you can trust them. That automatically makes you better than Oz. And it's like, oh, shut up. It's like they're still trying to make us as viewers fall into the idea that Oz did something wrong. And I'm sorry, but no. It's not going to work. Oz did nothing wrong. Well, I don't agree with everything in it. There's this Jello Apocalypse video called "This Is Basically RWBY," where in it he says, again, I don't agree with everything he says in the video, but one of the things I do is that he says that they keep trying to make Ozpin this morally great character while not actually having him do anything but bad. And it's like, exactly. Oz has done nothing wrong. Yet they're treating him as if he's this evil, horrible character who deserves to be just completely demonized. And it's like, oh my god. So that was the only part of this that I really was not a fan of, that they're still kind of hammering that in. But at this point, I think it would be weird for them to completely, like turn full circle on that. I really do hope that eventually, though, they, the characters and the crew change that and make our team realize that they were in the wrong for demonizing Ozpin. And at the end, we have evil mustaches. So Watts goes to meet with Jacques. He just waltzes into the Schnee mansion, which freaks Whitley out, and Whitley apparently is just freaked out by him, I guess, in general. Because you could tell, Whitley is scared shitless. Like, think about how Whitley acted towards Weiss when she was trapped in the mansion before she escaped and everything. How snarky and how much of an ass he was. And look at him in this episode. How timid and scared he is. It's not because he's talking to his father. No, he's not timid and scared of Jacques. He's timid and scared of Watts. Because Watts, one, just let himself in. And two, we know what kind of presence Watts has. So, yeah. So Watts goes in, Whitley leaves and shuts the door behind him. Jacques knows who Watts is, and we find out that apparently Watts had faked his own death. And so people thought he was dead and everything, which makes sense. So Jacques and him are talking, and he gets Jacques to, bring up his grievances with Ironwood. And that's when Watts is like, oh, but I have a way you can have your cake and eat it too. And it's like, oh god. Just what we needed. It's like, what's worse than one evil mustache? Two evil mustaches. And it's like, oh. So Watts is going to work with Jacques now. Presumably, I guess, the same way he did with Lionheart. And now he's going to help Jacques with his election into getting on the council, which, as we see in the opening, there's a point where they're throwing rocks at this hologram of Ironwood, and it flashes real quick to Jacques' face. They're definitely building up something with maybe Jacques taking over or something. and that's not a good thing. But I mean, the bad guys, yeah, that's going to be something they would rather have. They would rather have someone like Shock in power because they know Ironwood actually poses more of a threat to them and their plans. Um, so yeah, I can see this heading a couple ways. Um, One of which, and I honestly don't hope this happens, is that Jacques does get in charge. It causes the bad guys to get in and cause all this mayhem and destruction and deaths and stuff. And Jacques starts to realize that Ironwood may have had a point and even gets redeemed in a way to where he sides with Ironwood eventually. I don't want that to happen because, one, I think it would feel a little too obvious and cliche in a way. And two, I don't want Jacques to be redeemed. I hate to say it, and it's like, I'm usually the one who's all for redemptions for villains and antagonists. I don't want Jacques to be redeemed. I think it would invalidate a lot of what his character has meant for Weiss's character. For him to be redeemed would invalidate a lot of what Weiss's development and current depth mean. So it's like, yeah, I don't want that to happen. I think he needs to remain antagonistic. The other option I see happening is that Watts does help Jacques get the council seat and everything, get the power, and it causes this big, like, political kind of rivalry between him and Ironwood, between Jacques and Ironwood. And Jacques is basically being used, obviously, as a puppet for Salem. And it just, like, causes this big, like you would see in real life, a political rivalry with the people, probably turning to Jacques is just because of being an alternative to Ironwood, who they already hate. So it kind of like this political battle kind of thing that you would see in, like, real life, especially in the American presidential elections and shit. But yeah, it's just, this is really a fascinating turn of events and everything. It's just like, this is like, this season so far has felt not different exactly from how RWBY normally is. That's the wrong way to put it. But it's felt like, yeah, this is a new era. This is a new part of this series. And I think that's good because of, like, well, as I put it, it basically is. Because volumes 1 through 3 felt vastly different from volumes 4 through 6. The tone was different, the way the characters were portrayed was different, the general feel of the series, of the episodes, of the characters, of how things went, how characters reacted, all of that felt vastly different than in the first 3 volumes. And so now it feels very different again. But it doesn't quite feel like it did in volumes 1 through 3 or anything. It feels like its own thing. And I think that's important. I think it's important that it feels, while you're watching it, notably different from how the past 3 volumes, 4, 5, and 6 felt. Because that's the point. Again, it's basically like a new part. The first 3 volumes were part 1, the second 3 volumes were part 2, this is part 3. This is the beginning of the next stage of this series, of these characters. So, yeah, I think that this is being handled extremely well. And I can't wait to see where they take it from here. I really have been loving every episode of this volume so far. I've been loving the new characters. I've been loving the conflicts that are being built up. And I really like how Watts is taking on a more, like, central role. Because Watts, up to this point, has had a very just kind of background role, more supportive type thing for the villains. But now this is definitely his time to shine. Even Tyrion is not as big as Watts is right now. So it's like, I really, really like that. And yeah, this is going to be insane as to where this goes and everything. We'll just have to see. We will just have to see. In the meantime, tell me down in the comments below what you thought of this episode of RWBY, and thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and thank you so much for tuning in to today's video. If you want to check out any of my social media links and more, please check them out over to the side. And if you have any comments, questions, concerns, please leave those down below. In the meantime, though, thank you so much once again for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.